What if the real enemy isn't outside you, but a silent loop running inside your own mind? There's something disorienting about feeling stuck when nothing seems to be holding you. You go through your day, you check the boxes, you play your part, but somewhere beneath the surface, a quiet resistance pulses through your chest. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, but it's always there, like a hum beneath your thoughts, like an echo that never fully fades. You may have all the freedoms the world can offer. You may live in a place where you're allowed to speak, move, and choose. And yet, something inside you still feels locked, like there's a gate you can't open, a version of yourself that's watching from behind the glass. These aren't just poetic metaphors, they're neurological patterns. They are programs. Neville Goddard once said that imagination is not just a tool, it's the very blueprint of reality. And if that's true, then the stories you've rehearsed in your mind, the images you've replayed in your inner world, have become the architecture of your life. Not because you wanted it that way, but because your subconscious never stopped listening. Imagine a prison built from old emotions, the walls made of memory, the locks formed by repetition, and the key? The key is buried inside the very part of you that keeps telling the same story over and over again. Joe Dispenza teaches that when we relive past emotions, we wire our body to feel the same yesterday, every day. We become chemically addicted to a version of ourselves we're desperate to outgrow. We think we're choosing, but in reality, we're looping. And what aches the most is the knowing, the quiet knowing that you were made for more, that something radiant lives within you, that your potential isn't gone, just hidden, that you're not broken, just entranced by a program that was never really yours to begin with. So the question isn't whether you're powerful, the question is whether you're ready to remember, because something within you remembers. It always has. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to return. Pause here, breathe, let yourself feel what's moving inside, because in the next moments, we'll dive into the first chain, the one that looks invisible, but shapes everything you see. You've felt them, haven't you? Not as ropes, not as cages, but as patterns. Silent, persistent, almost invisible, yet so real, they contour your entire life. The hesitation before you speak your truth, the reflex to shrink when you should expand, the endless push-pull between what you want and what you believe you're allowed to have. These are not metaphors. These are neural programs. Real biological patterns woven through years of repetition. And the mind, so brilliant, so adaptive, learns early how to keep you safe, even when safety means smallness. What if what you call self-sabotage is actually self-protection? What if your procrastination, your overthinking, your fear of visibility are just outdated systems, still doing the job they were wired to do when you were too young to question them? Neville Goddard didn't see imagination as fantasy. He saw it as law, as structure, as the builder of your life's form. And what you repeatedly imagine, especially when you're not aware you're imagining it, becomes the loop your life plays on. Your subconscious doesn't argue, it doesn't evaluate, it simply accepts. Like soil, it grows whatever seed is planted. Fear, doubt, shame, or wonder, beauty, joy. Joe Dispenza speaks of emotional addiction, how the body, over time, becomes more familiar with the chemistry of the past than with the potential of the future. And so you may try to change. You may declare new intentions, but if your inner world is still singing the old song, nothing really moves. It's like standing at the threshold of a new life, but carrying the echo of every closed door behind you. And then comes the ache. That quiet, persistent ache of knowing that you were made for more. Not as a concept, not as ambition, but as a truth etched deep into your being. You feel it in moments of stillness, in dreams that return, in flashes of who you could be if only you could break free. But these chains, these neural codes, they are not you, they were learned, which means they can be unlearned, rewritten, reprogrammed. And that begins not with effort, but with awareness, with the gentle recognition that your true self has never been the problem. Only the programming was. Let that land. Let it soften the places inside you that have been hard for too long. And as we move forward, feel this. What if the past is still speaking through your present? What if your now is just a reverberation of an old emotional frequency? Let's listen more closely. Sometimes it's not the memory that hurts. It's the residue it leaves behind. An emotional frequency, subtle but heavy, that lingers in your body long after the moment has passed. You think you've moved on. You change cities, relationships, routines. But the energy, it follows. Not as punishment, just as habit. Your subconscious doesn't keep time. It doesn't know that the pain was 10 years ago. It only knows repetition. And so the emotion you felt the most, fear, rejection, shame, abandonment, becomes the signal your body expects and eventually creates. The subconscious is an emotional recorder. It memorizes your reactions and replays them again and again, not to harm you, but to help you predict the world. That's how the mind feels safe, even when the emotion it's replaying is the very thing that's keeping you from growing. You can speak affirmations, you can visualize, but if the emotional frequency beneath those words is still calibrated to the past, nothing vibrates high enough to shift your timeline. There's a split between the mind and the heart, between the intention and the emotion, between the desire and the signal you're broadcasting. It's like trying to tune into a station that's already occupied by static. This is why heart-brain coherence matters. It's not just a poetic idea, it's a measurable, energetic state in which your thoughts, emotions, and biology come into resonance. When that alignment happens, your energetic field strengthens. You stop leaking energy into fear. You stop feeding the loop. But coherence can't be forced. It's felt. It's chosen gently. It begins with emotional honesty, with noticing what still echoes, even when everything else has changed. Because if your present is built on a past frequency, then you're not manifesting, you're reenacting. And beneath that repetition lives exhaustion. That feeling of, I've done everything and nothing's working. That sense that life keeps repeating itself in new clothes. But here's the truth. You're not stuck because you're broken. You're stuck because your body still believes the past is now, and it keeps trying to protect you from a danger that no longer exists. So ask yourself, not with blame, but with curiosity, what emotion am I still living from, even though the story is over? As that question breathes inside you, we move into another layer, where thinking alone cannot lead you, and where even your most positive thoughts are overruled by a nervous system still trapped in defense. You've tried it. The mantras, the mindset shifts, the daily affirmations whispered into the mirror with trembling hope, but the shifts felt temporary, fleeting, like a beautiful thought that couldn't take root in the soil of your body. And maybe you started to blame yourself, wondering if you weren't trying hard enough, wondering if you were the exception to the promise of change. But here's the truth, and it's a gentle one. You cannot overwrite fear with words alone. You cannot speak peace into a system that's still bracing for danger. Positive thinking, while beautiful, becomes hollow when your nervous system is still locked in survival, because your thoughts are only part of your reality. Your emotional vibration, that deeper, older current running through your cells, often speaks louder. Joe Dispenza said it clearly. You can't think greater than how you feel. Nes, and when your feelings are shaped by past trauma, chronic stress, or inherited fear, your thoughts, no matter how pure, struggle to take hold. The body doesn't lie. If it's still flooded with cortisol, still tight in the chest, still on alert, no amount of positivity can reach deep enough to rewire what's happening underneath. Cortisol sharpens survival. It shuts down creativity. It narrows your vision. It silences the intuitive parts of you that were meant to imagine, to dream, to receive. Dopamine, on the other hand, starts chasing short-term rewards, not meaning. You scroll, you snack, you avoid, and your highest visions get traded for small moments of escape. And it's not your fault. It's not weakness. It's chemistry. It's survival intelligence. But survival, when chronic, becomes limitation. It builds an invisible ceiling on your joy, your expansion, your power. And so what often feels like failure is actually biology. There's nothing wrong with thinking positively, but it only works when it's partnered with emotional safety, when the nervous system feels safe enough to believe a new thought, not just hear it. So pause here, feel your breath, feel your body, not to fix it, just to meet it, just to remind it. We're not in danger anymore, because until your body knows that, your mind will keep building walls where there could be windows. And just beneath those walls, another pattern quietly waits. A deeper one, more subtle, more spiritual. A pattern where even your awakening can turn against you. Let's go there. There comes a point on the spiritual path where the problem is no longer ignorance. It's hesitation. A soft, quiet mistrust that surfaces just as you're about to step forward. Just as the light begins to shine more brightly through you, a whisper rises. Who am I to hold this? This isn't arrogance. This isn't ego. It's something else entirely, something deeper. It's the invisible tension between knowing you carry something sacred and feeling unworthy to live it. Energetic imposter syndrome doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It lingers in the background. It wears the mask of humility. It calls itself realistic, responsible, grounded. But beneath those names is a refusal to trust your own light, a refusal to inhabit your full presence without shrinking. You feel the call to create, to speak, to become, but the energy of doubt coils around you like smoke. It doesn't need to stop you completely. It just needs to delay you, to dim you slightly, to convince you that your timing is off, that your readiness is incomplete, that you must earn what you already are. And so, many awakened beings, sensitive, wise, aware, stay on the sidelines of their own lives. Not because they don't see truth, but because they don't yet believe they have the right to live it. This is where self-abandonment becomes subtle, where it disguises itself as patience, acceptance, surrender, but deep down, you know it's something else. It's the part of you still waiting for permission that only you can give. False humility says, I don't want to seem like too much. True presence says, I trust what flows through me, not as mine, but as sacred. You don't need to perform worthiness. You were born into it. But you do need to notice the patterns that tell you otherwise. The energy of hesitation, the internal retreat, the fear of being fully seen. Not by others, but by yourself. Because here's the paradox. Your greatest power doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from allowing more, allowing the truth that's already yours, allowing the light that never needed permission to shine. And when you begin to trust that light, when you stop apologizing for your essence, something shifts. And that shift begins to change your reflection, not just in the mirror you see, but in the mirror that life holds up to you every day. Let's look deeper into that mirror. There's a moment, quiet and unassuming, when you catch your own gaze in the mirror, and something pauses. Not the image, the self beneath the image. The part of you that knows this reflection isn't just skin and eyes. It's frequency, it's identity, it's assumption. Neville Goddard taught something simple but radical, that you become what you assume, not what you wish. Not what you work hard for, what you assume. And assumption is not a mental trick. It's a state, a deep inner agreement with a version of reality you haven't yet seen, but already feel. The mirror technique is not about pretending. It's about realigning. You look into your reflection, and instead of asking, what do I see? You ask, who am I when I no longer carry the past? Who am I when I stop arguing with my own becoming? You hold that gaze not to affirm, but to embody. To let your posture shift, to let your voice change, to let your cells begin to remember a version of you that's not waiting, but already living. Because the shift doesn't happen when you think a new thought. It happens when you feel from a new self. That's the vibrational difference between imagining and being. One observes from the outside, the other radiates from within. Your identity isn't fixed. It's a costume of memory and agreement. And every time you enter the mirror technique, you have the chance to try on a different frequency, not to fake it, but to become it, to let your mirror reflect not what the world has told you you are, but what your soul already knows. And when that inner knowing becomes stable, when the assumption becomes familiar, life doesn't resist. It adapts. It mirrors you back, because the outer world is not the creator, it's the echo. So pause with this. What would change in your life if your reflection was no longer a question, but a confirmation? Let that ripple through you, because in a world of inner reflection, what you feed yourself matters. And not just emotionally, neurologically, which brings us to a trap so subtle, it often hides inside our daily habits. Let's go there. There's a rhythm to your day that you may not even notice. A flicker of boredom followed by a reach for your phone, a surge of anxiety, answered by scrolling, snacking, distraction. It's subtle, it's automatic, and it's rewarded, not by truth, but by dopamine. Dopamine is not the problem, it's the messenger, a biological signal of pursuit, reward, survival. But in a world designed to capture your attention, that signal has been hijacked. You are no longer chasing meaning, you're chasing moments. Quick hits, tiny escapes, and every time you indulge that loop, your brain learns. This is safety. But safety, in this case, means sedation. It means disconnection from presence. It means that instead of sitting with your future and letting it sculpt your now, you escape into impulses that dissolve your vibration. And so, the vision you once held, the one you imagined with clarity, intention, love, begins to blur. Not because you gave up, but because you got pulled away, pulled into micro-escapes that seemed harmless until they became habitual. This is the dopamine trap. It rewards survival, but punishes expansion. It says, this moment is uncomfortable, leave it. When manifestation asks, this moment is a portal, stay with it. Your imagination, that sacred tool of creation, doesn't thrive in overstimulation. It thrives in stillness, in coherence, in the spaces between noise. But stillness can feel unfamiliar when your nervous system has been trained to seek escape. So you reach, again and again. And with each reach, you drift just slightly further from the vibration of what you truly desire. The way out isn't discipline, it's awareness. A gentle return to what nourishes. A choice to replace the short-term hit with something deeper. An immersion into feeling, into vision, into alignment. To pause in a moment of restlessness and ask, what am I truly craving? Because beneath the scroll, the click, the bite, what you truly crave is connection with yourself, with your becoming, with the frequency of the life you came here to live. And when you choose that connection, even for a breath, something in your field shifts. Your body begins to remember presence. Your imagination begins to feel safe again. And your energy stops leaking into what doesn't serve you. Because in the end, manifestation is not built on effort. It's built on attention. And where you place that attention, consistently, lovingly, becomes the texture of your timeline. And speaking of timelines, there's a moment when the future stops being distant, when it stops being a destination and starts becoming a vibration you carry. Let's feel into that. We often think of the future as something far away, a distant point we hope to reach if we work hard enough, heal deep enough, wait long enough. But the field, the intelligent energy that holds all possibilities, doesn't operate on distance. It responds to frequency. Greg Braden speaks of this elegantly. The field is not moved by thought alone. It is moved by emotion, incoherence, by the resonance of what we feel as already real, which means the timeline you long for, the love, the abundance, the freedom, the peace, does not live ahead of you. It lives within you, waiting for resonance, waiting for you to vibrate at a frequency that says, I remember you, I feel you now. And that's the shift, not from here to there, but from separation to embodiment. Imagine your future not as a place, but as a scent, a fragrance you wear before the meeting. You don't wait until it arrives to feel it. You wear it now, so when you arrive, you are recognized by it. That's not visualization, that's vibrational immersion. That's allowing the energy of what you seek to move through your posture, your decisions, your silence. It changes how you speak. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you attract. Not by effort, but by alignment. Because the future isn't just watching you. It's listening to you. It's feeling your coherence. It's waiting for your nervous system to declare, I no longer need to reach for you. I am you. And when that declaration is honest, not forced, not fantasized, but felt, the field begins to respond. People shift. Circumstances bend. Reality reshapes itself around your signal. Not because you demanded it, but because you became the version of you who no longer needs to chase. Let that sit with you. Let it melt into the parts of you still holding on. Because what comes next is the deepest remembering. The remembering that even biology, even your very cells, are listening to belief, and they are ready to follow something new. Let's walk into that together. There's a narrative many of us were taught, quietly and early, that we are bound by what runs in our blood, that our genes, our biology, our history define us, and that our bodies, with all their complexity, are mostly following orders written long before we were conscious. But Bruce Lipton shattered that story. He showed us through epigenetics that our cells do not blindly obey DNA. They respond to environment, and that environment isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's vibrational, it's shaped by the signals we send through thoughts, feelings, beliefs. Your biology is not a fixed sentence, it is an orchestra, and belief is the conductor. If you live in fear, the chemistry of your body reflects that. If you carry shame, your cells tighten around it. If you wake up each day believing you are broken, your biology quietly agrees. Not because it's true, but because your signal has said so. But the opposite is also true. When you shift into trust, into coherence, into the felt sense that you are safe to expand, your biology reorganizes. Your immune system strengthens. Your brain lights up in new ways. Your heart communicates differently. The body is not the enemy of your transformation. It is the mirror of it. Neville Goddard said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And when you do, something remarkable happens. Not just emotionally, biologically. The body begins to anticipate a future it hasn't yet seen, but already believes. You stop surviving your past. You start rehearsing your destiny. And it's not about denying pain. It's about transmuting it. It's about letting every old belief, every inherited fear, every invisible chain dissolve in the presence of something truer, because you were never here to fight your old self. You were never meant to wage war with your shadow. You are here to remember, to return, to reunite with the version of you that was never broken, only buried beneath noise. So now, as the stillness settles in, breathe and feel into this. Which invisible chain am I ready to break? Not because someone told you to, but because something inside you already has. And if that recognition stirred something in you, let it echo. Let it ripple into quiet action, into shared resonance, into a life that no longer waits to begin, because you've already begun. Somewhere deep inside, beyond all your thinking and all your striving, there is a stillness that recognizes truth when it hears it. Not because it's new, but because it's ancient. And today, you've walked through layers of that truth. Not in theory, but in feeling. Not as concepts, but as awakenings. You've seen how invisible chains form, how emotions from the past can write the code of the present, how your nervous system, your beliefs, your chemistry, your identity, all conspire to either limit or liberate you. But beneath it all, you've also seen something else. Something softer, the quiet intelligence of your body, learning to trust again, the sacred invitation to live as if the future already feels you, the remembrance that biology is not your boundary, it is your reflection. You were never meant to wait for change to arrive. You are meant to become the vibration that change responds to, not by pretending, not by forcing, but by remembering the power of your imagination, the wisdom of your emotions, the sovereignty of your beliefs, and above all, the truth that what you long for is not outside you. It is already encoded in the frequency of who you are becoming. So now gently, let this sink in, not as a task, not as a goal, but as a whisper to your nervous system. We are safe to expand. We are ready to remember. And maybe, if something moved in you, even slightly, you'll carry that movement into the next hour, the next choice, the next breath, because it doesn't take a miracle to change a life. It only takes alignment. And alignment begins. In moments like this, let it echo, let it settle, let it begin again.